Welcome to Dejobnik, the vanguard of truth and insight. Gear up as we dive into today's crucial topic. Stay vigilant, stay informed. This is Dejobnik, your command post for clarity and perspective.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm honestly shocked to be sitting here today. I'm shocked by the focus of this briefing. I'm shocked by the blatant lies being spread. I'm shocked at the utter dissonance from the reality on the ground. But most of all, I am shocked by this Council's willingness to waste its time focusing on such a marginal, extremist phenomenon, while the entire region is on fire. And the true reason for this raging fire receives complete silence here. Council members, just yesterday morning, rockets were fired from Lebanon at population centers in Haifa and Akko in northern Israel. 2 days ago, rockets were fired at the northern Israeli city of Kiryat Shmona. And 3 days ago, Hezbollah fired guided anti-tank missiles at St. Mary's Church in the Western Galilee, injuring 11 people. Yet, these brazen attacks on civilians, towns, cities, and holy sites do not warrant an urgent briefing here in this Council. Do these attacks sound like a mere spillover? Is this violence occurring magically on its own? Is it not clear that genocidal terrorists are seeking to murder Israeli citizens every single day? Every single day. This Council is quick to show solidarity with civilians across the Middle East, so long as they are not Israelis. In fact, hardly a week goes by without some meeting regarding the protection of civilians in Gaza, and not a week passes without the UN and its officials calling to shield Lebanon and Syria. So why, when it comes to innocent Israeli civilians being targeted in northern Israel every day by Hezbollah, Hamas, and other Palestinian organizations, is this Council silent? Why have you not condemned the rocket fire from Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen? The situation in northern Israel is reaching a point of no return. Every day, innocent Israelis are under attack. If these attacks persist, Israel will ensure these acts of terror stop. So why have you not spoken up? Why have you not demanded that Lebanon take action to prevent terror attacks being carried out from their territory? Why is it that the UN remains silent in the face of terror only when it is directed against Israel? 50,000 Israeli civilians were displaced along the northern border because of the Iranian-backed attacks by Hezbollah from Lebanon. These attacks are a flagrant violation of Israel's sovereignty, of international law, and of Security Council resolutions, in particular 1701. If these attacks continue, I reiterate, the situation will escalate and may lead to a full-scale war. Lebanon must be held accountable for the aggression carried out from its territory. And let me be clear again, Israel will defend itself. I have warned this Council countless times, sent letters, but instead of discussing this clear and present threat to security of the Middle East, we are here again discussing a marginal issue which is a result of the conflict, but not its root cause. Council members, Israel is currently fighting a war for its very future against genocidal Hamas terrorists who committed the most widespread massacre of Israelis. 84 days after 1,300 Israelis were butchered, and while 129 are still being held hostage in Hamas terror tunnels, this Council still has not even condemned the Hamas Nazis' attack. Does this Council truly believe that the disgraceful act of a handful of extremists, Israeli extremists, are the true roadblock to a solution? Is this the topic that the Council should be focused on today? Acts of violence, mostly damage to property, which Israel's police force is cracking down upon to the full extent of the law? Rockets are raining down on Israel's north and south. Entire families have been burned alive by Hamas ISIS. But extremist violence is the hurdle to peace? There were no Israelis in the West Bank in 1948. There were no Israelis in the West Bank in 1967. Yet, the Palestinians and Arab countries still sought to annihilate Israel. Do you not see the absurdity? When will you address the true obstacles for peace in our region? Colleagues, last week there were 4 instances of extremist violence against Palestinians in Judea and Samaria. 4. And if you look at the numbers over the past 3 months, it is clear that extremist violence is de-escalating, contrary to the focus of this briefing. Israel condemns every act of violence. Israeli leadership, contrary to what was said here today, has made this clear. We condemned it. And not only are such crimes condemned by Israel, severe action is also being taken to combat it. Arrests have been made, indictments have been issued, and we make every effort to bring all perpetrators to justice. But still, this is a marginal issue, and it is in decline. So why has the Council dedicated an urgent briefing to this topic in the midst of a war? But if you want to discuss Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank as you call it, despite a war raging in the south and another war brewing in the north, let's talk about the widespread phenomenon that is truly threatening the situation in Judea and Samaria: Palestinian terror. Let's talk numbers. Since October 7th, there have been 1,028 shooting, stabbings, and IED attacks by Palestinian terrorists against Israelis. 1,028. In the same period, there have been 2,118 rock-throwing attacks and Molotov cocktails firebombings by Palestinian terrorists on Israelis. This is the reality. In less than 3 months, there were over 3,000 Palestinian terror attacks. Over 3,000. Over 15 times more than the incidents of extremist Israeli violence in the same time frame. Throughout 2023, nearly 8,000 Palestinian terror attacks were carried out against Israelis in Judea and Samaria. Yet, according to OCHA reports, these attacks are virtually non-existent. This council is being lied to, because for the UN and its agencies, the truth is subjective. This is not only the case regarding Palestinian terror in Judea and Samaria. This is also the case in Gaza and wherever there is Palestinian terror carried out against Israelis. The UN either distorts or ignores the facts regarding Israeli terror victims. The UN is one of the main driving forces for the sick phenomena we are seeing now. From October 7th, atrocity denial to the denial of rape and sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas. The UN is an accomplice of terror organizations and anti-Semites. Because for the UN, Israeli lives don't matter. Israeli lives don't matter. Why is it that the casualty numbers supplied by the Hamas Ministry of Health are immediately taken at face value here, while Israeli evidence of Hamas's atrocities needs to be authenticated through the UN's rigorous triangular verification process? As we count our injured, missing, and murdered in the wake of the October 7th massacre, we are again learning just what a long process it is to draw up an accurate and reliable list of civilian casualties, even with the most sophisticated capabilities in place. Yet, Hamas's so-called Ministry of Health is always able to immediately determine the number of injured or dead after every incident. Does it not make you ask yourselves whether there is any truth to Hamas's numbers that the UN is so quick to parrot? The UN has no system to verify the lies of terrorists. I said it and I'm saying it again now. To the UN, genocidal terrorists are more trustworthy than the law-abiding democracy of Israel. For the UN, thousands of terror attacks against Israelis in the West Bank and elsewhere are not important enough to be reported upon, whereas marginal cases of extremist violence become the main focus of an urgent council briefing. The poisonous bias of UN agencies truly knows no bounds. Council members, this body has been weaponized to brand the side defending itself against terror as the source of the problem. Rather than advancing real solutions for combating murderous terrorist organizations, this council is focusing on Israel's counter-terror operations in Judea and Samaria. So I want to make the facts clear. Every single one of Israel's military operations in Judea and Samaria has one goal and one goal only: to neutralize ticking terror time bombs. Over 80% of the Palestinian fatalities during Israel's counter-terror operations were known and armed terrorists. Over 80%, and we have the names. But the UN refuses to verify the facts. And this council immediately accepts the libelous numbers which are detached from the context of the war against terror. As a result of this week's mission in Tulkarem, just one example, which targeted Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas terror infrastructure, the IDF seized many rockets and weapons and uncovered an explosive lab. Do you think that Israel wishes to risk the lives of our soldiers by entering these Palestinian cities? Do you truly think we want to put our troops in harm's way? Of course not. Sadly, the only reason Israel is forced to carry out these operations is because the Palestinian Authority refuses to root out the jihadist terrorists themselves. Israel will always defend itself. We will always take action against threats to our citizens, just as any of your countries would. And if the Palestinian Authority stands idly by, Israel will act. If you are truly impartial, the truth about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is very simple. And Israel's former Prime Minister, Golda Meir, summed it up in the past with perfect clarity. And I quote, "If the Arabs, in our case the Palestinians, lay down their weapons today, there would be no more violence. If the Jews put down their weapons today, there would be no more Israel." And I think you all know it in your hearts. Ever since the UN adopted the partition plan in 1947, every enemy of Israel who laid down their arms and chose to live side by side with us was met with immediate coexistence and peace. It is not by chance that the conflict with the Palestinians continues to this day. It is not because of Israeli military operations. It is not because of extremist violence. It is solely because of Palestinian terror and Palestinian incitement against our right to exist as a Jewish state. It is the sheer evil of Hamas that prefers to annihilate Israel while oppressing Gazans. It is the pay-for-slave policy of the Palestinian Authority and their indoctrination to jihad. And sadly, it is also the indifference of the UN and this Council to their heinous crimes. Time and again, this Council refuses to address the real obstacles and continues to dedicate time and energy to discussions that will bear no fruit. It's sad, truly sad. Dear colleagues, this Council is suffering from the streetlight effect. What is this effect, you may be wondering? So I'll remind you. A drunk man is stumbling around under a streetlight at night looking for his keys that he lost. A police officer approaches him and begins to help him search. After a couple of minutes, the police officer turns to the man and asks, I can't see your keys anywhere. Are you sure that you lost them here, under the street lamp? The man turns to the officer and says, no, I lost them in the park down the road. I'm only looking for them here because this area isn't dark. So, distinguished council members, you are constantly being dragged underneath the streetlight. The distortion of UN agencies also drag you underneath the same streetlight. But there is nothing to be found under the streetlight. It's just easier to spend your time underneath it. Today, you have been dragged here again by the Arab League to give you the impression that the core of the conflict is not Palestinian terror, but Israel's acts of self-defense from Palestinian terror. Rather than spend this council's valuable time discussing the only way to resolve the conflict, you are being briefed by vehemently biased anti-Israel briefers. The Council has never invited a briefer who is truly impartial or can say even one word of criticism against the Palestinian Authority or the Palestinian leadership. This is why you are being falsely told that Israel's actions are the obstacle to peace, while Palestinian terror is hardly even mentioned, let alone discussed or addressed. Mr. President, if this Council's noble cause is to bring peace and security to the Middle East, I suggest it start with the situation at hand, namely Hamas, Hezbollah, their Iranian puppet masters, and all other genocidal jihadists threatening stability in the region. And there is only one solution to ending this war immediately, the war in Gaza. The Hamas terrorists must turn themselves in and release all hostages. This is the only solution, and this is precisely what this Council should be focused on advancing. Can the Council unite to back this solution? Sadly not. The Council cannot even come together to condemn the atrocities of October 7th. It is heartbreaking to see this Council not taking any constructive steps to end the war in Gaza. But it is particularly heart-wrenching to see the Council's inaction towards freeing our hostages from Hamas. It is shameful that the suffering of innocents, women, babies, the elderly, who were kidnapped from their beds, have become a footnote to this Council, to the Secretary General, to the International Red Cross, and to all UN bodies. I reiterate, calling for their release is not enough. The world must remember them every day. They committed no crime, and now they are locked away in a dark terror tunnel in Gaza. While the UN may choose indifference, Israel will not stop until we bring them home. Our hostages will not be forgotten. The world and the people of Gaza must know their names in order to remember why the war in Gaza is ongoing and will continue until we bring all of the hostages home. These are our hostages, and for them we will never stop fighting. And I want to read their names here. Tamir Adar, Alon Ahal, Yosef Chaim Ochanuna, Dror Or, Avinatan Or, Tomer Yaakov Achmias, Guy Iluz, Muhammad El Atrash, Liri El Bag, Yitzhak El Garat, Yosef Yusuf El Ziyadana, Hamza El Ziyadana, Idan Alexander, Farachan El Kadi, Ronen Engel, Matan Engerst, Aviv Atzili, Noah Argamani, Karina Arayev, Elkana Buchbut, Yogev Buchshtev, Amit Esther Buskila, Kfir Bibas, Yarden Bibas, Ariel Bibas, Ehud Ben Amir, Ron Binyamin, Agam Berger, Kirill Brodeski, Saar Baruch, Uriel Baruch, Rom Broslavski, Ziv Berman, Gali Berman, Almong Jian, Ran Guili, Menachem Meni Godard, Hirsch Goldberg Polin, Oren Goldin, Romy Gonen, Maya Goren, Daniel Gilboa, Guy Gilboa Dalal, Yitzhak Galaranter, Carmel Gat, Shaked Dahan, Eviatar David, Emily Damari, Oz Daniel, Ori Danino, Alexander Danzig, Sagi Dekel Chen, Yair Horn, Eitan Horn, Inbal Heyman, Louis Herr, Maxim Harkin, Omer Vinkret, Shlomi Ziv, Aryeh Zalmanovich, Gad Chagai, Tal Chaimi, Asaf Hamami, Itai Chen, Alexander Trofnov, Dolev Yahud, Arbel Yahud, Ohad Yahalomi, Yair Yaakov, Eden Yerushalmi, Nimrod Cohen, Elia Cohen, Segev Khalfon, Ravid Aryeh Katz, Alex Alexander Lubanov, Naama Levi, Eitan Levi, Or Levi, Shai Levinson, Shani Luke, Eliakim Libman, Judy Lin, Oded Lifshitz, Gad Moshe Moses, Avraham Monder, איתן מור, עמרי מירן, שלמה מנסור, יורם מצגר, אליהו מרגלית, סימון מרמן, עומר מקסים נוטרה, מישל ניסנבאום, תמיר נמרודי, איתי סבירסקי, קיט סיגל, שירי סילברמן ביבס, יונתן סמרנו, אלמוג סרוסי, צחי עידן, נדב פופלבל, חיים פרי, דניאל שמעון פרץ, מתן צנגאוקר, אנדרי קוזלוב, דוד קוניו, אריאל קוניו, אמירם קופר, בר קופרשטיין, עופרה קידר, עופר קלדרון, אלעד קציר, ליאור רודאיף, טל שוהם, דורון שטיינברכר, עומר שם טוב, יוסי שרעבי, אליהו שרעבי, אוריון הרננדז רדו, ביפין ג'ושי, סורסה קלמנר, ג'ושוע מולל לויטו, סונסיה אוקרסר, נטפונג פינטה, סוד סיתק רינתלק, בנוואט סייטסו, וואצ'רה סריאון, סתיאסן סואנקם, פונגקס דאטאמה. These are our hostages, and for them we will never stop fighting. We are fighting for their release, and you too, distinguished council members, should be doing the same. Thank you, Mr. President.
Agradezco al representante.
I thank the representative of Israel.
Thanks for watching. If you're eager for more, click right here or dive deeper at www.dajobnik.com. Your insights matter to us, so if there's a topic you're curious about, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dajobnik signing off.